Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. This is 6 Path Weeb. Today, we continue our ongoing Naruto What If series with part 3 of What If Naruko joined the Inuzuka clan as a wolf? In this chapter, the story dives deeper into Naruko's growing bond with the Inuzuka clan, the consequences of her feral instincts, and how her presence begins to change both the clan and the village itself. Before we begin, a quick disclaimer: all content on this channel is created for entertainment and discussion purposes only. I do not own any anime footage used in this video. All rights and credits go to their respective creators and copyright holders. With that said, let's get started. Next week at the academy. Team 7 walked calmly down the academy hallway, their footsteps echoing softly. Ahead of them, a crowd of nervous Shin'an stood clustered around a classroom door, whispering anxiously. 2 older students appeared to be blocking the entrance, arms crossed and faces serious. Naruko Uzumaki did not slow her pace. She simply smiled and kept walking alongside Sasuke and Sakura. That was when a pale-eyed boy noticed them. "Hey," he called out, curiosity clear in his voice. "Where are you three going? And what are your names?" Naruko turned her head slightly, looking over her shoulder with a confident grin. "Naruko Uzumaki," she said cheerfully. "Sasuke Uchiha," Sasuke added calmly. "And I'm Sakura Haruno," Sakura said politely. "Who are you?" "Neji Hyuga of the Hyuga clan," the boy replied with pride. "You still haven't answered my first question." Sasuke glanced at the doorway and spoke evenly. "It's an illusion meant to test awareness." Neji's eyes widened. He focused carefully, activating his special vision, and nodded once. "You're right." With a quick gesture, he signaled to his teammates, Tenten and Lee, and together they walked forward. The illusion faded like mist, revealing the real classroom beyond. The nervous Shin'an gasped in relief and followed. Inside the room, the proctors exchanged amused smiles. "Well," Izumo said quietly, "those must be Kakashi and Guy's students." Kotetsu chuckled. "This exam is already interesting." Team 7's thoughts. Sasuke observed the room silently. "There are strong people here. This will be challenging." Sakura adjusted her headband. "I need to stay focused. Everyone here is serious." Naruko took a deep breath. "I feel like something important is about to happen. I hope we all keep our heads cool." A challenge of spirit. A boy with an enthusiastic smile stepped forward. "Sasuke Uchiha, please wait." Naruko glanced at him curiously. His thick eyebrows and energetic posture made him stand out. "What do you want?" Sasuke asked. "I am Rock Lee," the boy said proudly. "I wish to test myself against you, not to fight, but to see how our skills compare." Sasuke considered this, then nodded. "Very well. A friendly demonstration." The two moved to an open space. Instead of clashing, they exchanged swift movements, stopping just short of contact. Their balance, focus, and control impressed everyone watching. Lee smiled brightly. "You are very skilled, Sasuke." Sasuke gave a small smile in return. "You too." Naruko clapped softly, clearly pleased. "That was awesome. You both showed great control." The rookies gather. Soon, the other rookie teams arrived. Team 8 and Team 10 joined them, and the room filled with familiar faces. Ino immediately leaned toward Sakura. "So, Sakura." Sakura crossed her arms. "Don't even start." Shikamaru yawned. "All the rookies together. What a drag. But seeing you here, Naruko, makes it a bit better." Naruko bumped fists with him, smiling. Kiba arrived moments later with his team. "Naruko. How've you been?" She grinned. "Good. How's everything at the compound?" "All quiet," Kiba said. "Everyone misses you." "That means a lot," Naruko replied warmly. Helpful information. A silver-haired older Shin'an approached them calmly. "You might want to keep things quieter," he said kindly. "You've drawn a lot of attention." Naruko stepped forward politely. "What's your name?" "Kabuto Yakashi," he replied. "And yes, this exam is tougher than it looks." Sakura tilted her head. "You've taken it before?" Kabuto nodded. "Several times. If you want, I can share what I know." He produced a stack of cards. "These contain information about other candidates." Sasuke spoke up. "Rock Lee. And Gaara of the Sand." Kabuto smiled. "Rock Lee specializes in physical training and dedication. Gaara is quiet, reserved, and very focused. Not much is known about him. Shikamaru sighed. Sounds complicated. Kabuto nodded. Every village has its own strengths. Respect and awareness go a long way here. Quiet observations. Across the room, 3 siblings from the Sand Village watched silently. He's observant, Kankuro murmured. Tamari nodded. And calm. Gaara said nothing, but his gaze lingered on Naruko with quiet curiosity. Closing note. Naruko looked around at all the gathered Junon, her heart steady and hopeful. This isn't about proving strength, she thought. It's about learning, growing, and protecting what matters. And with that, the Chunin exams truly began, guided by respect, determination, and friendship. Rock Lee spoke in a calm but serious voice. I think we should stay focused and avoid unnecessary trouble, she said. Neji nodded in agreement, his expression thoughtful. Just then, a tall instructor stepped into the room. All right everyone, please quiet down and listen carefully, he said firmly but fairly. My name is Iviki Morino, and I will be overseeing this part of the exam. This is a place for focus, respect, and learning. Let us all do our best. Dosu raised his hand politely. Sorry, sir. This is our first time, and we were a little nervous. Iviki nodded. That is understandable. Just remember, cooperation and honesty are important. There will be no rule breaking. Anyone who ignores the guidelines will not be able to continue. Is that clear? The room filled with quiet nods. Iviki continued, please hand in your paperwork so we can begin. The assistants moved through the room, collecting forms with smiles and calm encouragement. Once everyone was seated, Iviki explained the rules clearly. This test has 10 questions, and you will have 1 hour to complete it. Each participant begins with 10 points. Incorrect answers reduce your score by 1 point, and dishonest behavior reduces it by 2. If your score reaches 0, your team will not move forward. Please remember, this test is about perseverance and confidence. With that said, the exam began. Naruko felt surprisingly calm. She had studied very hard, often falling asleep with books open beside her. She trusted herself and stayed focused, answering each question with care. She smiled softly, enjoying the challenge. When the final question arrived, Naruko glanced at Sakura and quietly mouthed, "Trust yourself." Sakura took a deep breath and smiled back. Suddenly, colorful streamers fluttered through the open window, followed by a lively voice. Surprise! I'm Anko Mitarashi, and I'll be guiding the second part of the exam. A bright banner hung on the wall, decorated with playful lettering welcoming everyone to the next stage. Iviki sighed with a small smile. You're early again. Anko laughed lightly. I just get excited. Look at all these talented students. Iviki nodded. They have worked hard. Let's see how they continue to grow. Earlier, in the Jonin lounge. Asuma leaned back comfortably. So, Kurenai, how do you think your students did? Kurenai smiled warmly. I believe in them. They prepared well. Kakashi nodded. The first exam challenges the mind. Anyone who gets through it has shown real determination. Outside the training grounds. Anko stood proudly at the entrance to a vast, beautiful forest filled with tall trees and sunlight. Welcome to Training Zone 44, she announced. This next challenge is about teamwork, awareness, and problem solving. She waited patiently as the students settled down, then explained the rules clearly and kindly, just as they had been taught. At the gate, everyone received encouragement and safety reminders. There were no fights, no harm, and no danger. Every challenge was carefully supervised to ensure learning and growth. Naruko stayed close to her teammates, offering reassurance and positive energy. Even when the group was briefly separated during a practice exercise, they reunited safely and stronger than before. Inside the tower control room. Well done, Anko said, looking at the screens. The sand team finished quickly, but everyone showed great effort. One observer nodded. These students are very skilled for their level. Another added. And they're learning to stay calm and focused. That's what truly matters. The preliminaries. As Team 7 entered the main chamber, they saw many familiar faces, other rookie teams, experienced groups, and friendly rivals. Sakura looked around in awe. There are so many of us. Why do you think we're all here? Naruko smiled confidently. My guess is we're about to take part in a friendly preliminary challenge. Sakura and Sasuke looked surprised, then smiled. Well, Naruko said cheerfully, let's give it our best. They moved into position with calm, practiced steps. The leaders and instructors appeared, including the third Hokage, who raised his hands gently for silence. He spoke with wisdom and warmth. Do you know why these exams truly exist? The room grew quiet, filled with curious faces. He smiled. They are not about winning or losing. They are about learning who you are, how you grow, and how you support one another. Naruko listened closely, her eyes bright with determination and kindness, ready for whatever lesson came next. The third Hokage calmly continued speaking, his voice gentle and thoughtful as he addressed the young ninja gathered before him. Why do you think our village holds these exams together with our allies? He asked. Of course, one reason is to help everyone grow stronger and to deepen bonds between villages. But there is a deeper meaning you should understand. Ten tilted her head and raised her hand. What do you mean by that? The Hokage smiled slightly and continued, long ago, the villages that are now friends were once neighbors who did not understand each other very well. Instead of constant struggles, they chose a better way. They created friendly challenges where skilled ninja could represent their villages. These challenges were held in agreed-upon places, allowing everyone to learn from one another and improve together. That tradition became what we now call the Chunin exams. Naruko crossed her arms and spoke up with a curious grin. So, does that mean people come to watch just because it's exciting? The Hokage nodded patiently. Some visitors do come to observe, but not for shallow reasons. Leaders and important guests attend so they can understand how each village is growing. They watch to learn, to cooperate, and to offer opportunities to talented ninja. These exams help shape the future of the ninja world by encouraging trust, responsibility, and teamwork. Kiba raised his voice next. But why do we have to push ourselves so hard? Because growth happens when we challenge ourselves, the Hokage replied. A village's strength comes from the hearts and skills of its ninja. These exams allow each of you to discover your potential, represent your home with pride, and take one step closer to your dreams. Ino frowned slightly. Then why did you speak so seriously earlier? The Hokage's expression softened. Because it is important not to misunderstand. This tradition exists to maintain balance and understanding between villages. It is about responsibility, respect, and friendship. The final exam tests not only skill, but also character. Gaara crossed his arms and spoke calmly. I'm ready. Just tell us what comes next. Before the Hokage could answer, a Jonin landed beside him and bowed respectfully. Lord Hokage, please allow me, Hayate Gecko, to explain the next stage. The Hokage nodded. Please do. Hayate stood up and addressed the group. Before the final round, we will hold a preliminary challenge. Because so many of you passed earlier stages, we need a way to organize things fairly. Shikamaru groaned lightly. You've got to be kidding. Hayate continued, unfazed. If anyone does not feel at their best today, you may raise your hand and step out. There is no shame in knowing your limits. Kabuto calmly raised his hand and chose to leave. Hayate acknowledged him with a nod. If there are no others, Hayate said, the preliminaries will begin shortly. Please move to the balconies on either side. Each challenge will be one-on-one, supervised carefully, and focused on skill and control. Up above, the teachers and village leaders watched closely. Anko leaned toward the Hokage. We should keep an eye on Sasuke. Kakashi replied casually, he won't leave quietly. The Hokage nodded thoughtfully. Let him continue for now. I will personally ensure everything remains safe and balanced. As Kabuto exited, the Hokage turned to his advisors. This is not the first time he has withdrawn at the last moment. Ibiki checked his notes. According to records, Kabuto has entered several times without reaching the end. The Hokage considered this carefully before giving quiet instructions to the shadows behind him. Observe him. Learn his intentions. Yes, Lord Third, came the reply, and the presence vanished. Back in the arena, the teams began moving to their assigned places. The sand and sound teams gathered on one side, while Team 7 stood near their teacher on the other. Naruko looked around, her eyes bright with excitement rather than fear. This wasn't just a test. It was a chance to grow, to learn, and to believe in herself. And Naruko was ready. The large arena felt quiet and exciting at the same time. Naruko Uzumaki sat forward in her seat, hands gripping the railing, eyes shining with anticipation. She believed in her friends more than anything. Sasuke Uchiha vs Yoroi Akato. Down in the arena, Sasuke and Yoroi faced one another. The referee, Hayate, raised his hand. Begin. Yoroi rushed forward quickly and grabbed Sasuke, his hands glowing faintly as he focused his chakra. Sasuke stiffened in surprise. My energy. It's being taken, Sasuke said, confused but determined. Yoroi smiled confidently, clearly pleased with himself. Up in the stands, Naruko leaned forward. That strange mark on Sasuke. It's bothering him again, she thought with worry. Sakura clasped her hands together nervously, while Kakashi watched calmly, clearly analyzing every move. Sasuke struggled but refused to give up. With effort and focus, he broke free and stood tall again. I won't fall here, Sasuke said firmly. Though he was tired, Sasuke remembered Rock Lee's training. When Yoroi came at him again, Sasuke moved with new confidence. He leapt, spun, and delivered a series of precise kicks, lifting Yoroi into the air before landing one final controlled strike. Lion's Barrage. Sasuke called. The crowd gasped. Naruko's eyes sparkled. He did it, she whispered proudly. Rock Lee looked stunned, then thoughtful. He realized Sasuke had learned by observing and growing, not by taking anything away. The referee declared Sasuke the winner. Kakashi immediately guided him away to rest and recover, putting his health first. Naruko smiled with relief. Zaku Abumi vs Shino Aburame. The next match was called, and Naruko tilted her head curiously as Shino stepped forward, calm as ever. Zaku laughed loudly. This'll be easy, he said. Shino adjusted his glasses. I suggest you reconsider, he said politely. When the match began, Zaku charged with confidence, but Shino moved carefully, defending without rushing. A cloud of dust filled the arena for a moment, hiding both fighters. When it cleared, Shino stood calmly as tiny insects surrounded the ground, moving together like a quiet team. Naruko blinked. Whoa! That's actually kind of amazing. Zaku froze, realizing he had been outsmarted. His tools no longer worked properly, and he stumbled back in surprise. Shino spoke evenly. This match is over. Zaku nodded and signaled his withdrawal. The referee announced Shino as the winner. In the stands, Neji quietly explained what he saw with his special vision, and Might Guy proudly shared that Shino belonged to a rare and peaceful clan who worked closely with insects. Naruko nodded. Everyone here is so different. And that's awesome. Misumi Tsurugi vs Kankuro. When the next match began, Misumi spoke confidently, while Kankuro stood silently. As the match progressed, Misumi thought he had the upper hand, until his opponent was revealed to be a cleverly controlled puppet. Kankuro stepped out from hiding, calmly demonstrating his strategy. I prefer planning ahead, Kankuro said simply. Misumi was caught off guard and could not continue. The referee declared Kankuro the winner. Naruko laughed lightly. That was sneaky. But smart. Tenten vs Temari. Tenten entered the arena with determination, encouraged by her teammates. Temari waited patiently across from her. When the match began, Tenten launched several tools with precision. Temari responded with strong wind techniques, redirecting everything smoothly. The match ended quickly, with Temari winning without being harmed. Kakashi sighed gently. Tenten has talent. She just needs more ways to use it. Naruko nodded firmly. She'll get stronger. I know it. Shikamaru Nara vs Kintsuchi. Shikamaru sighed before stepping forward. What a drag, he muttered. Kin moved quickly, using sound cues and clever distractions. Shikamaru stayed calm, watching carefully. After thinking it through, he used the shadows around him, including the ones cast by Kin's own tools. With one final clever move, Kin lost her balance and sat down hard, too dizzy to continue. The referee called the match. Shikamaru won. Naruko grinned. Brains beat rushing in every time. Asuma smiled proudly, while Kakashi commented, he didn't move much at all. That's his style, Asuma replied. Naruko leaned back, heart full. Every match showed something important. Strength wasn't just about power. It was about learning, teamwork, patience, and believing in yourself. And Naruko knew her own turn would come soon. Hinata Hyuga vs Neji Hyuga. Hinata and Neji of the Hyuga clan faced each other in an important exam match. Neji spoke confidently, trying to make Hinata doubt herself by reminding her of her fears. Instead of giving up, Hinata decided this was her chance to grow. She wanted to show herself, her father, and her cousin Naoko that she could be brave and determined. They stepped forward together, using the graceful Hyuga gentle fist style and the keen sight of the Byakugan. Their movements were careful and precise, like a well-practiced dance. Kakashi quietly explained to the spectators that the Byakugan was a rare inherited ability known as a Kekkei Genkai, famous for its clarity and insight. Although the match seemed balanced at first, Neiji's skill allowed him to disrupt Hinata's technique, making it difficult for her to continue using her special style. Even so, Hinata refused to quit. Her courage impressed everyone watching. Seeing her exhaustion, the exam proctor stepped in and stopped the match to keep her safe. Hinata was escorted to the medical team, where she was praised for her effort and heart. Gaara of the Sand vs. Rock Lee. Rock Lee entered the arena with his usual excitement, speaking enthusiastically about hard work and youthful spirit. His opponent, Gaara, stood calmly as Lee launched a series of fast and focused movements. Gaara's sand defense gently blocked each attempt, surprising many in the crowd. At one point, Lee removed the heavy training weights from his legs, and everyone gasped as he moved faster than before. Even Naruko, watching from the stands, leaned forward in amazement. Lee's speed challenged Gaara's defenses, showing how much effort and practice could achieve. Gaara revealed another layer of protection, showing that he too had trained diligently. Lee pushed himself further, using advanced techniques he had learned with his teacher's guidance. Kakashi explained that these techniques required great discipline and could only be used briefly. Eventually, Lee grew too tired to continue safely. His teacher, Might Guy, stepped in at once, proud of Lee's dedication and relieved he was safe. Gaara was declared the winner, but Lee earned admiration from everyone for his determination and spirit. Dosu Kinuta vs. Choji Akimichi. Choji Akimichi felt nervous before his match and considered stepping aside. His teacher, Asuma Sarutobi, encouraged him with kind words and a promise of a celebratory meal if he did his best. Choji bravely entered the arena, using clever strategies to counter Dosu's unusual techniques. Dosu adapted quickly, using vibrations in creative ways that Choji had not expected. Though Choji did not win, he learned valuable lessons and was praised for facing the challenge with courage. Kiba Inuzuka vs. Naruko Uzumaki. When Naruko saw her name on the board, she sighed playfully. Of all the people, she said with a grin, I get matched with a close-range fighter. Kiba smiled confidently and called to his partner, Akamaru. Let's show how much we've grown. They met in the arena, standing proudly. So, Naruko said cheerfully, shall we see whose teamwork shines brighter today? This match will honor our clans, Kiba replied respectfully. Naruko tilted her head back and let out a playful howl, echoed faintly from far away. She smiled, full of excitement and confidence. From the stands, Kakashi watched closely, believing this was Naruko's moment to show her progress. When the match began, Naruko focused on movement and timing, skillfully avoiding Kiba's charges while testing her own techniques. Kiba and Akamaru worked together seamlessly, pushing Naruko to stay alert and think quickly. At one point, Naruko was knocked back and surrounded by dust. When it cleared, the crowd gasped, not in fear, but in amazement, as she stood up unharmed, brushing herself off calmly. Kurenai looked surprised. Kakashi, how is she able to recover so easily? Kakashi smiled. Naruko has a rare gift. Her energy is naturally strong and balanced, allowing her body to recover quickly. Combined with her excellent control, she can keep going longer than most. Naruko returned to her stance, smiling with determination. No matter the outcome, she was proving something important, that kindness, persistence, and self-belief were just as powerful as strength. In the arena, Naruko stood up, brushed off her jacket, and smiled brightly at Kiba. Well, she said cheerfully, you really surprised me there. That was impressive. But I think it's my turn now. And look who just arrived to help. A friendly howl echoed gently through the arena, not angry but strong and confident. From the shadows padded a large pitch-black wolf with soft, glowing yellow eyes. She moved calmly, her tail swaying with curiosity rather than aggression. The wolf lowered her head politely. Father, she said in a calm voice, who would you like me to partner with? Naruko grinned and crouched slightly. Otoru, let's work together. She focused her chakra inward, activating Giju Ninpo, Shikyaku no Jutsu, a technique that sharpened her senses and made her movements light and swift, like a dancer. Seeing this, Kiba activated the same technique, matching her stance with determination. Rather than clashing harshly, the match became a fast-paced test of teamwork and balance. Naruko and Kiba darted across the arena, leaping, turning, and redirecting each other's movements in a display of agility and strategy. Otoru and Akamaru mirrored their partners, weaving around one another in a playful but skilled exchange. After several minutes, both sides paused, breathing steadily. The crowd watched in awe as the four competitors stood marked only by dust and effort, not harm. Naruko noticed Kiba wobble slightly, his movements no longer lining up the way he expected. She formed a quick set of hand signs and gently tapped his shoulder. For a moment, nothing happened. Then Kiba blinked and laughed in confusion. When he tried to step forward, his arm lifted instead. When he tried to wave, his foot moved. "Okay," he said, chuckling despite himself. "What did you do, Naruko?" Naruko crouched in front of him and explained kindly. "It's a control disruption technique created by Lady Tsunade. It doesn't hurt at all. It just temporarily mixes up how your body responds, like cross signals. It's meant for training and learning, not harm." She smiled warmly. "It helps remind us how important focus and coordination are." Nearby, Otoru gently held Akamaru by the scruff, keeping him safely still, like an older sibling guiding a younger one. Hayate raised his hand. "The match goes to Naruko." Naruko immediately released her technique and used Shozen Jutsu to refresh Kiba's energy and ease his tired muscles. She helped him to his feet and walked him over to his sensei with respect. In the stands. The third Hokage watched thoughtfully. "No matter how many times I see Naruko support others with her skills," he said, "it always fills me with pride." Anko and Ibiki nodded in agreement. Kakashi adjusted his headband slightly. "Interesting. She doesn't rush or overpower. She leads with calm and confidence." Kurenai smiled. "She's a medic, yes, but also a protector. Much like Lady Tsunade." The announcements. As the arena settled, the leaders returned to the center. Hiruzen addressed the finalists. "You have all shown honor, cooperation, and growth. Your villages can be proud." Anko stepped forward with a small box. "Draw a number and announce it." The pairings were read aloud. Naruko vs Neji. Shikamaru vs Tamari. Shino vs Kankuro. Gaara vs Sasuke. Dosu vs the winner of the first match. Naruko looked ahead with a hopeful smile, ready to continue learning and growing. A quiet month of growth. A full month had passed in peaceful training. Naruko sat beside a clear pond within her clan's compound, her reflection shimmering gently on the water's surface. Nearby, Hana was patiently guiding a group of young wolf pups through simple chakra control exercises. Elder wolves watched with calm wisdom, helping the pups learn tracking and focus in a safe, playful way. Naruko smiled as she watched, feeling proud of how far everyone had come. Suddenly, she sensed a presence behind her. It was calm, steady, and unfamiliar. Without turning, she spoke gently. "You can come out now. I know you're there." A tall man stepped from behind a large stone, his expression curious rather than threatening. "So," he said with a deep but friendly voice, "you really are as skilled as people say, kid." Naruko stood and turned, brushing leaves from her clothing. She smiled warmly. "Jiraiya of the Sannin. It's nice to finally meet you. What brings you here to see me and my family?" Jiraiya rubbed the back of his head, suddenly looking unsure. "I was sent on a long mission just before the Nine Tails incident. My task was to protect the village by maintaining important information networks. Because of that, I wasn't there for you. I was supposed to be your godfather." He looked down at the ground, clearly embarrassed. Naruko was surprised, but not upset. Before she could speak, Hana approached, having overheard the last part. She gasped softly, then wrapped Naruko in a warm hug. Naruko rested her head against Hana's shoulder, thinking carefully. She remembered stories of sacrifice, duty, and responsibility. Finally, she stepped forward and smiled at Jiraiya. "It might take some time," she said kindly, "but I'd like to get to know you. We can start by talking over the next few weeks." Jiraiya looked relieved. Naruko continued, her tone bright. "I'm guessing Lord Sarutobi told you about my special ability with wolves, and how it affects my chakra and appearance." Jiraiya nodded eagerly. "He told me everything. He also mentioned your talent for medical techniques and how naturally skilled you are, just like Lady Tsunade." Naruko nodded, though Hana gave her a playful elbow that made her laugh. "Oh, right," Naruko said. "Jiraiya, this is my wife, Hana Inuzuka." She gestured to the wolves who had gathered nearby. "And these are our companions. From oldest to youngest, Shomi-ai, Senko, Otorikage, and Misutoashi. The three ninja hounds are Arashi, Seishin, And Sukaru. The wolves sat calmly, tails swishing. Jiraiya stared in awe at their size, then chuckled. Hana laughed softly. I'll make some tea, she said kindly. Behave yourselves. The pups followed her excitedly toward the house. Naruko turned back to Jiraiya. So, she said thoughtfully, what did you want to talk about today? Jiraiya smiled. Our fighting styles are very different, so I won't be your apprentice teacher. But I can help you learn elemental chakra control and some basic techniques. Especially before the finals. Naruko's eyes brightened. That sounds perfect. They shook hands, both smiling. Naruko pulled out a small strip of chakra testing paper. This reacts to chakra nature, she explained. Fire makes it burn, wind makes it tear, water makes it damp, earth turns it dusty, and lightning causes it to wrinkle. Jiraiya watched closely as Naruko focused. The paper reacted in an unusual way, becoming warm and damp at the same time before gently dissolving. They stared at it in surprise. Jiraiya laughed softly. Well, that's interesting. Naruko smiled with curiosity rather than worry. It looks like you have a rare combination, Jiraiya said. With careful practice, we'll help you understand it safely. Naruko nodded, excited but calm. I'm ready to learn. The wolves howled softly in agreement, and the pond shimmered peacefully beside them. Later that night, Naruko sat comfortably on the couch, holding a scroll about fire manipulation. The scroll was old but well cared for, and its diagrams glowed softly under the lantern light. Curled up beside her was Hana, who was reading along with great interest. Hana enjoyed studying together because she liked learning new ideas, even if she did not use the same techniques herself. Naruko noticed Hana following every word carefully, so she smiled and gently rolled up the scroll. You're really focused, Naruko said warmly. Hana laughed. It helps when we study together. They shared a quiet moment, enjoying the calm of the evening. Soon after, they carefully put the scroll away, wished each other good night, and headed to bed, ready for the next day. 2 weeks before the finals. Naruko stood in her training field early in the morning. The air was cool, and the grass sparkled with dew. She held a small, round stone in her palm and slowly focused her chakra into it. A gentle ring of warmth appeared around the stone, glowing like a tiny sun. After a moment, she stopped the flow, and the warmth faded. The stone was smooth and slightly changed, showing how carefully she had controlled her energy. She tossed the stone aside and turned to Jiraiya, who was watching with a proud smile. How was that, Godfather? Naruko asked. I didn't even have to stop and think. Jiraiya nodded. Very good control. You've made strong progress. Over the past month, Jiraiya had guided Naruko step by step through fire manipulation basics, never rushing her. Each lesson built on the last, and she only moved forward once everything felt natural. In the mornings, they practiced chakra control and elemental balance. In the afternoons, they worked on focus, strategy, and a spinning chakra technique that required patience and steady hands. Naruko found the technique challenging at first, but once she understood how to guide her chakra smoothly and evenly, it became much easier. She practiced carefully, using only a small number of shadow clones so she would not overdo it. Now, she felt ready for something new. All right, kid, Jiraiya said, handing her 2 scrolls. These are advanced fire style forms. Remember, they are for training and control, not for hurting anyone. Focus on balance and precision. Naruko nodded seriously and took the scrolls. She felt excited, not because of power, but because she could feel herself growing, stronger, wiser, and more confident with every lesson. She took a deep breath, ready to learn. Naruko's bright path. Naruko formed the hand signs carefully, her face full of focus and excitement. Fire style, grand fireball technique, she said clearly. She took in a deep breath and gently released a warm, glowing fireball into the air. It floated forward like a bright orange lantern before fading safely above the training field. A little puff of harmless smoke escaped as she stopped, and she smiled proudly. Jiraiya laughed warmly and gave her a thumbs up. Good work, Naruko. Now try the next one. Naruko nodded and tried again, this time taking quick, light breaths. Small, flower-shaped bursts of glowing flame appeared, dancing through the air and gently tapping the practice targets placed around the field. Each one fizzled out safely on contact. Jiraiya clapped once, clearly impressed. Nearby, Hana applauded as well, smiling brightly at Naruko's progress. Keep practicing until lunchtime, Jiraiya said encouragingly. Once you feel comfortable, we'll try using fewer hand signs. Little by little, You'll make the technique smoother and faster. Naruko nodded enthusiastically and returned to training. She waved cheerfully at Hana before focusing again. Jiraiya walked over to the house and sat cross-legged on the porch with a cup of tea. Hana soon joined him, and they talked quietly about missions, teamwork, and growth while watching Naruko practice. Jiraiya couldn't help but admire Naruko's determination and her improving control. She kept trying, smiling even when things didn't work perfectly. Nearby, a few of Naruko's shadow clones practiced another technique. They worked patiently, concentrating together. After several attempts, one clone tried something new, holding out both hands. For a moment, two spinning orbs of energy appeared, shining softly, then the clone vanished in a harmless poof, passing its experience back to the others. Naruko's eyes lit up with excitement. She laughed and went back to practicing, even more motivated than before. The day of the finals. The day of the finals arrived at last. Naruko entered the stadium, taking in the huge crowd and bright banners. She walked over to the other contestants and stood beside Shikamaru, calmly looking around. Shikamaru thought to himself that she looked relaxed, just like always. In the stands, Sakura smiled happily. Naruko is finally here, she said. Ino nodded. Yeah, she made it just in time. This should be fun to watch. High above, in the cage viewing area, the Hokage sat quietly, thinking about the future. Jiraiya stood nearby as one of the guards, relaxed but alert. When the Kazekage arrived and took his seat, the Hokage greeted him politely. I'm looking forward to today's matches, the Hokage said. As am I, the Kazekage replied. Back in the arena, Genma addressed the contestants. Everyone, stand straight and represent your villages proudly. The group fell silent. Naruko glanced around and wondered quietly where Sasuke might be, but she stayed focused. The Hokage stood and spoke clearly, his voice carrying across the stadium with the help of chakra. Welcome, everyone, to the final round of this year's Chunin selection exams. Thank you for joining us here in the Hidden Leaf Village. Please enjoy the matches and cheer for all the candidates. There was a wave of applause. Genma then held up a paper. There's been a small change to the match list, so take a moment to review it. Naruko raised her hand politely. What happens if someone doesn't arrive for their match? If that happens, Genma answered, their match will be delayed or adjusted. In the stands, Sakura watched the arena closely, hoping everything would go well. Around her, the crowd buzzed with excitement and curiosity. Naruko took a steady breath, smiled to herself, and stood ready. No matter what happened next, she knew she had grown stronger, not just in skill, but in confidence and heart. And her journey was only just beginning. In the arena, Genma stepped forward and calmly addressed everyone. The terrain may change, but the rules stay the same. There aren't many, but I will step in if needed. The first match will be Naruko Uzumaki Okami vs Neji Hyuga. Everyone else, please move to the waiting area. The crowd buzzed with excitement as the two stepped into place. In the stands, Kiba leaned toward Hinata and smiled. I have a feeling this is going to be an interesting match. Hinata nodded softly, watching the arena with quiet focus. With the Jonin, Anko wandered through the crowd wearing a wide-brimmed hat, cheerfully collecting friendly guesses about the outcome. Most people chose Neji, unsure of what Naruko could do. Anko, along with a few Jonin and Hana, exchanged knowing looks. Sometimes, Anko thought, people underestimate growth. Back in the arena, Naruko and Neji stood facing each other, calm but alert. Genma gave the signal to begin. For a moment, neither moved. Neji spoke first. Do you have anything you'd like to say? Naruko shrugged lightly. Not really. She focused, letting her energy rise in a soft, glowing shimmer that showed she was serious. Neji activated his Byakugan, his eyes sharp and observant. We'll see how this goes, Neji said. Naruko smiled with confidence. If you're serious, then I'll be serious too. She shifted into her unique stance, inspired by the Inuzuka style but adjusted to suit her own way of moving. She clearly had no intention of rushing straight in. Neji tilted his head slightly. That stance is unfamiliar. I adapted it myself, Naruko replied casually. Neji nodded. Then let us see whose path leads forward today. A test of skill. Naruko began with a technique that sent glowing energy chains sliding harmlessly across the ground, gently testing Neji's awareness. He stepped aside easily, guided by his vision. Naruko laughed quietly to herself. Worth trying. Dash. Observers react. Asuma blinked in surprise. That's a technique my father used to talk about. Nearby ninja murmured in admiration. From the viewing booth, the Hokage smiled warmly. She keeps growing in ways that surprise even me. Another observer scoffed dismissively, unimpressed, unaware of the deeper skill being shown. Dash. A flowing exchange. Neji moved forward with graceful precision, attempting to tag Naruko's shoulder and sides in a respectful spar. Naruko responded with smooth footwork, weaving and spinning away, never losing her balance. She released a soft, colorful mist that gently encouraged Neji to step back, then formed glowing energy along her arms, not to harm, but to protect. She motioned playfully. Your turn. They exchanged movements for several minutes, neither overpowering the other, both learning and adjusting. It was less a battle and more a dance of discipline and focus. Naruko then released a harmless fog that Neji dispersed with a spinning motion of controlled air. She followed with bright, floating bursts of warm light that drifted toward him. He redirected them safely, showing excellent control. Dash. Growth recognized. Members of the Hyuga clan watched closely, surprised and impressed. Hyashi smiled proudly. You've raised a remarkable child. Dash. The turning point. Naruko gathered her energy into two small, glowing spheres that hummed softly in her hands. The entire arena grew quiet. She dashed forward, then cleverly swapped places with a clone that slipped underground using a simple movement technique. As Neji focused on the decoy, Naruko emerged nearby and gently tapped him with one of the glowing spheres, releasing a harmless pulse that signaled the end of the match. Genma raised his hand. The winner is Naruko Uzumaki Okami. Dash. After the match, Naruko immediately knelt beside Neji and placed her hands over his arm, sharing calm, restorative energy. Medics arrived, but quickly realized everything was already fine. Neji opened his eyes and met Naruko's bright blue gaze. You did well, she said kindly. Neji smiled faintly. I thought destiny decided outcomes. Naruko shook her head. Growth decides outcomes. Today, we both grew. Neji nodded. I agree. Thank you. That was a good match. They stood together as the crowd applauded, not for victory alone, but for respect, learning, and positive strength. In the cage booth. That was a very entertaining match, said the third Hokage with a warm smile. A wonderful way to begin the exams. My, you certainly have raised some very capable young shinobi, Hokage Dono, replied the Kazekage kindly. Dash. In the competitor's box. Naruko stepped inside and stood between Shino and Shikamaru. Both quietly congratulated her on her earlier performance. Naruko smiled proudly, her confidence growing with each kind word. Just then, Genma announced, due to a scheduling issue and a valid notice beforehand, Sasuke Uchiha's match has been moved to the final round. Could Shikamaru Nara and Tamari of the Sand Village please come forward? Shikamaru sighed. Troublesome. Might as well get this over with, he said as Tamari leapt down gracefully, using her fan to guide her safely to the arena floor. Shikamaru followed at an unhurried pace. Naruko leaned forward, curious to see how things would unfold. Dash. In the arena. Tamari waited calmly, standing tall and confident. When Shikamaru arrived, he rubbed the back of his head and said lazily, I don't get why everyone's so excited. Most people are just waiting for the last match anyway. Tamari raised an eyebrow. Are you giving up before we even start? Dash. In the stands. A few kunoichi nearby exchanged looks of mild annoyance at Shikamaru's tone and whispered among themselves. Asuma let out a small sigh. He really could try a little harder. Guy, however, stood up and shouted with enthusiasm, Shikamaru-kun. Let your youthful spirit shine. Everyone nearby politely scooted away from him. Dash. Back in the arena. Tamari took a confident step forward. If you won't begin, then I will, she said, ready to demonstrate her skills. Genma cleared his throat. I haven't officially started the match yet. Shikamaru sighed. Right. Sorry about that. The match began, turning into a clever contest of strategy and movement. Tamari demonstrated precision and control, while Shikamaru focused on thinking several steps ahead. Instead of rushing, he carefully guided the match, testing ideas and learning from each moment. After a long while, Shikamaru paused and raised his hand. I forfeit. I've learned what I needed to today. The crowd gasped, surprised. Genma nodded. Winner, Tamari of the Sand Village. Tamari blinked, then smiled respectfully. Dash. In the stands. Naruko stared in disbelief. He gave up. But he looks happy. Shikamaru returned to the seats, stretching. Thinking things through is more important than winning sometimes. Naruko nodded, clearly impressed. Dash. Next match. Genma called for Shino and Kankuro. After a brief moment, Kankuro raised his hand. I withdraw, he said calmly. Winner by forfeit, Shino Aburame, Genma announced. Just then, Sasuke and Kakashi arrived. Are we late? Kakashi asked casually. Genma smirked. Almost. But your match was saved for last. Dash. In the competitor's box. Gaara sat quietly. I knew he would arrive. Dash. In the arena. Gaara appeared surrounded by gently swirling sand that settled calmly at his feet. He stood still, focused, observing Sasuke with quiet intensity. Sasuke studied Gaara as well, noticing his calm posture and steady presence. Genma raised his hand. Begin. Gaara took a deep breath, steadying himself. I need to stay calm, he murmured, closing his eyes for a moment. Sasuke thought, he's strong. But also struggling inside. Dash. In the competitor's box. This is unusual, Kankuro whispered. He's thinking too much. Tamari nodded. That means Sasuke made him reflect before the match even started. Naruko watched closely, her eyes wide, not with fear, but with understanding. Everyone here is learning something, she thought. That's what really matters. Back in the arena. Gaara suddenly clutched his head, wincing as a sharp ache passed through him. The sand that had been floating protectively around him gently settled onto the ground like falling leaves. High in the stands, Baki let out a quiet breath. Thank goodness, he murmured. He's calming down. Gaara straightened, breathing more evenly now. He looked toward Sasuke and gave a small nod. Well then, he said calmly, shall we continue? Sasuke responded by tossing a handful of practice shuriken. Gaara's sand rose smoothly, blocking them with ease as he stood with his arms folded, completely steady. The sand shifted and shaped itself into a look-alike figure beside him. Sasuke dashed forward, light on his feet. The sand figure burst into a swirling cloud, but Sasuke leapt upward, flipping through the air and sending more shuriken downward. The sand figure reacted quickly, redirecting them aside. Landing gracefully, Sasuke spun, tapping the sand figure at its arms and then stepping back as it crumbled apart. The sand tried to wrap around his wrist, but Sasuke calmly pulled free and stepped back into position. For a moment, there was an opening. Sasuke moved in, but his strike was gently stopped by a layer of sand. He smiled, then vanished in a blur of speed. Gaara's eyes widened slightly. She's fast. Just like that other one, he thought, remembering Naruko's cheerful confidence and quick movements from earlier matches. Sasuke reappeared behind Gaara and tapped his shoulder lightly. The sand immediately caught Gaara and helped him regain balance before he could stumble. Sitting upright again, Gaara looked thoughtful. So that's how it works, Sasuke said, curious rather than mocking. Your sand protects you automatically. Sasuke motioned playfully. Your turn. Gaara didn't move right away, so Sasuke laughed softly. Alright, then I'll go. He dashed forward again, but this time Gaara stepped back and the sand formed a round shield around him, like a cocoon. The arena grew quiet as everyone watched closely. In the stands. Tamari leaned forward, worried. He's not following the plan, she whispered. He's pushing himself too hard. Kankuro nodded. I hope he remembers to breathe. Nearby, Naruko watched with wide eyes, her hands clenched in encouragement. Come on, she whispered. You've got this. Both of you. Back in the arena. Sasuke paused, lowered his stance, and focused. Instead of anything dangerous, he gathered his energy into a bright, crackling glow that hummed like distant bells. It was controlled, careful, and meant only to test skill. Up in the stands, Guy turned sharply to Kakashi. Easy there, Guy said firmly. This is about learning, not pushing too far. Kakashi nodded. Agreed. Control matters most. Sasuke stepped forward, but the sand cocoon gently expanded, pushing him back without harm. The glow faded, and Sasuke stepped away, breathing steadily. Inside the sand, Gaara placed a hand on his chest and took a deep breath. I felt it, he said quietly. I felt myself losing focus. But I stopped. The sand slowly opened, and Gaara stepped out, calm once more. Before anything else could happen, soft white feathers drifted through the air, light as snow. One by one, many spectators grew drowsy, resting peacefully in their seats. Naruko blinked. Huh. That's new. High above, the leaders appeared, drawing everyone's attention and bringing the moment to a pause. The match was stopped, not because of fear, but because everyone had learned something important. Gaara had learned control. Sasuke had learned restraint. And Naruko smiled brightly, knowing that growth mattered more than winning. Dear YouTube family. This is all for now. Thank you sincerely for being a part of this journey and for supporting the channel with your time and love. If you enjoyed the content, please don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. It truly helps the channel grow and motivates me to bring you even better content in the future. Until next time, stay inspired and keep supporting. Thank you once again. Warm regards. 6 Path Weeb.